Hello everybody and welcome to today's Dragonrider happy hour. Checking to see if you can all hear me okay. I see so many people in chat. Nice to see you. I hope you've had a wonderful wind down at the end of your work week leading into your weekend, and thank you for choosing to spend some time here chatting about gaming news. So if you've never been a Dragonrider happy hour before, welcome to my bar. This is where we kick down at the end of a work week to talk about all types of gaming news, sometimes tech adjacent, but mostly gaming related news. So the topics we're going to discuss today, this week's news, has been a little lighter, but we're going to talk about is the future of gaming freemium and why that conversation's coming about, new VR headsets that have been announced and or rumored, the Video Game Hall of Fame and who was inducted this year, and Disco Elysium, the Final Cut's ban in Australia. Is it still a thing? So if these are interesting to you and you want to skip to any of those particular topics, feel free to just jump to the chapter where we talk about said topic. But if you're here live, welcome. What are you drinking today? I don't have bartender Nate with me today, but I am drinking cider out of my lovely Green Dragon, Trisha Stein. There it is. So yes. So yeah, that's what I have here. What are you drinking? Let's see. Matthew Henry already says no to freemium. I know, we're going to get to that in a second. I have lots of strong opinions and thoughts as well. James E says, my drink for today, plain old Coca-Cola. Love it. That's perfect. If you're like Dragon at the end of the day and need a little bit of a pick-me-up, that's great. Sorry for that sudden start, TGMDK. I know I need to have like some intro music or something, I guess, for these. I haven't had intro music on this channel for a long time. I feel like that used to be in fashion on YouTube and then it went out. So I stopped doing it with everybody else. Kelly McDonald says, restocked the wine rack. Well done, Kelly. As you can see, I have restocked mine as well. Okay, so let's jump into the news, right? Everybody sit back, relax, and let's do this. I know we were already starting a little bit. Matthew Henry said no to freemium. Here's why we're talking about is the future of gaming freemium, which I feel like is a very, very scary headline, but it's one that's been thrown around a lot this week. So EA announced that only 26% of their income this past year came from AAA games. The rest of the company income was more games as a service, free to play, aka freemium modeled. Games like Apex Legends, etc. And then Ubisoft, on an earnings call to their investors right around the same time, echoed the same sentiments, saying that they are going to prioritize persistent free-to-play adaptations of the video game franchises that they work on and licenses, aka the Division Heartland announcement that we talked about last week at Happy Hour. So Ubisoft then came out and said, look, we're not abandoning Far Cry 6. We're still working on Rainbow Six Quarantine, but we're no longer going to prioritize having 3 or 4 AAA games launch per year. Instead, we're going to shift some of our energy into these more freemium models, which are making more money. So obviously, the gaming industry is going to follow where the money is, especially if it's not as feasible or successful for them to continue in the way we have been, which this conversation prompted a lot of people, myself included, to say, no, I hate this news, because I immediately think of all of the AAA single-player experiences that I just love. Fantastic games that I've played over the years where I'm in it for the story and the heart and the journey that I go on, which is very different from an online multiplayer games as a service model traditionally. And I also, I think like many other people, think of the freemium games that are not done well, that are very invasive, that are constantly asking you for money, like with pop-ups and taking you out of the immersion, if you were even immersed in the game to start with, where it feels like, yes, the game said it was free, but in order to be competitive or in order to play and not have to wait an hour between doing things, you have to pay real-world money, which is a huge turnoff for me and I think for a lot of people. Let's see. James E says, I hate games as a service. Tyler Boy says, though, I will say that I'm very satisfied with the addition of Valkyrie to Apex Legends. Yay, Erica Ishii, again, with Valkyrie. Hi, Matt Lamb. What's up with you? Matthew Henry says, Magic the Gathering had a great model. Play the first level for free to see if you like it, then pay for full access. Eric says, did you get Mass Effect today? I have been working all day today, so I have not even begun my Mass Effect journey to answer that question, sadly. And Matthew Henry says, no for pay to play. Matt Lamb says, if something's free, you are the product, which I think is a great way to look at it. Jordan Wallishin says, good thing I mainly play indie, the last bastion of hope in the industry. I feel like that more often than not too, but I'm like, am I just the old curmudgeon as all the kids are like Apex, Warzone, Fortnite, and I'm the old crotchety gamer on my porch that's like, get off my lawn. I'm like, is this the direction that the video games industry is heading? I'm happy to hear them say that there will still be AAA games, maybe just not released as frequently, which if you're going to spend more time and put more heart into AAAs as opposed to focusing on just pumping them out, like I'm all for quality over quantity any day. Plus, as y'all know, any of you who watch my Twitch channel, I have an incredible backlog of games. Games come out so much faster than I can get to them. So from that standpoint, as long as they are still making the more premium types of games where you pay up front and then no one bugs you again, I'm okay with that. And there are certainly games that are more of that free to play with in-app or in-game transactions that have been done well. I mean, you guys brought up Apex Legends. Look at the success of League of Legends and Dota and trading card games like Hearthstone or Magic the Gathering, Arena Online. So there are models of doing this well. So to that, I ask you, everybody who's here at Happy Hour with me, where do you see gaming in the future? Do you think it's going to become like predominantly games as a live service model? Or do you think that there will be a pendulum swing back in the other direction and this is just kind of the phase that we're in right now? I'm interested to hear that. I know that I tend to be very knee-jerk reaction, like, no, freemium, bad, get away. But I'm trying to see the other side of the coin and think of people who may not have money to play anything else otherwise, that at least they're able, to get into a game and try it out maybe before they see if they want to spend money on it, something of that nature. George Pruitt says, I miss the days where you had to earn stuff by unlocking it. Now you got to pay for it. It's true. I miss those days as well. David says, Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes is a fun free-to-play. Okay, cool. That's what I'm like. I don't want this to be super one-sided. I definitely have my bias on this. So I want to just try to, look at all of the opinions of this. Took It Home to Jenny says, less crunch is good. But otherwise, I do like the idea of owning a good product than not having to deal with other things like ads. Jenny couldn't agree more. So yes, if less huge 50, 60 hour plus games pumping out of the same studio means less crunch for the employees, I'm all about that as well. Thank you for bringing that up. Kelly McDonald says, prefer pay once in a while, but not subscription. Rob K says, freemium is genius from a sales standpoint. Yay, freemium. It is. And those, like the reason you see everybody doing Raid Shadow Legends plugs all the time is because those games make bank for those companies. And so they have the money to be like sponsor, 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 sponsor. That's why you see that all the time. Christian says it's going to become a service with a few on the side for the people who won't buy into the madness. Maybe. Armando says, I guess I'm just old. I just like to play my single player campaigns. That's how I feel too. I'm like, is this because of the era of gaming that I grew up in that I really so value those single player experiences? Although I do also, again, let's look at the other side of this. I do understand how fun it can be for people to have the social aspect of gaming and gaming online with people or meeting people through gaming. I fully support that. Matthew says, I want to own a good game so that they don't change things to stay with the times. Nathan says, games will go the way as streaming and have subscriptions. Why sell a game if you can force people to rent it? Ooh, I hate that. Unless it's like, I don't know, if it's a low, like not a subscription per game. I don't like when individual titles have their own subscriptions. Unless it's a game that's like, that is your title. You play that game all the time. Then it could be worth that. But for someone like me who likes to try a bunch of different games, something like a Game Pass is an okay subscription. So maybe that way. Matthew says, I prefer single player games as well with co-op as an option. Co-op was always nice. Daniel Casaban says, we all sound like curmudgeons. We are all curmudgeons right now. But Rob K says, I like the test drive aspect of freemium. And I also, if I test drive a freemium model game, and I like it, and like I said, I'm pouring 5+ hours a week into that game, I have no problem paying money where money is due. I have no problem giving that money to the development studio, to the publishers, as like a, yes, you should be compensated for your hard work, 100%. Yeah, I think my reaction to it whenever I'm like, freemium, is because of games I've been burned by. Games that said they were free and you get 5 seconds in and there's a pop-up asking you for money, or a timer, you can't do anything for 10 minutes, or games where, some of them are even sneakier, where you can get like 20 to 30 or even an hour into the game. And then in order to stay competitive, which you don't realize until you start PvP, but then in order to stay competitive, you have to buy better gear, or pay money to level up or something like that. And then I'm mad because I feel like I've wasted all that time up until that point trying to build something that ultimately I should have been warned at the beginning, hey, you're never going to be able to build this without lots and lots of real world cash. Like, no amount of grinding is going to get this for you. Sorry. And I feel like I've been burned by too many of those. It makes me mad. But it is probably unfair of me to lump all free-to-play games into my feelings about those specific out-to-get-ya freemium models. Al Captain Plays says, I've never done it, but can't you return and get refunds from Steam sometimes? That's the only place I get PC games nowadays. You can get refunds from Steam sometimes. But yeah, with freemium, I don't think you can get refunds for in-app purchases most of the time. Haswell says, I dropped Genshin Impact because of the AR ranking. And I never got far enough into Genshin to even know what that is. But it's sad when you put a lot of time into building something and then find out it was like a scam all along. Matthew Henry says, agreed, played some Walking Dead games, play to win, or I'll pay for full access after a trial. Okay. Rob Case, and so Matthew, tell me, did you like the Walking Dead games or not? Because I've been looking into one of them as a Walking Dead fan recently, and I don't know if I should do it. I'm very hesitant, so let me know if you like them. Rob K says, freemium may be ruined by gamers playing them on stream. You think like too many people stream them and that's why they're ruined? DJ David, of course I'm pumped for the Resident Evil Infinite movie. Although I will watch it with all the lights on because I'm a big baby. But yeah, all the video game content that's coming up sounds cool. I'm very, very stoked for it. All right, so I think we've all decided we're curmudgeons on the porch, and that's okay. We're allowed to have our opinions. My hope is that wherever gaming goes in the future, that it leads to us getting different types of content that suit different type of gamers and not go all one direction just because that's where the money is. That's my 2 cents on it. Let's hope that we all still get wonderful, wonderful things. Lack of Words says, I've played the turn-based The Walking Dead mobile game. It felt like XCOM. Was it good though? You liked it? I mean, I like XCOM, so that's a winning endorsement in my book. All right, next up that I wanted to talk about today is some new VR headsets. So HTC unveiled the Vive Pro 2, which makes me a little sad because now my Vive Pro, I already feel like is slightly out of date. But the new Vive Pro 2 is exciting tech. The upgrades are that they are saying it's going to have 5K resolution, a 120 hertz refresh rate, and a wider field of view. It's going to be a 120 degree field of view as well as some other graphical improvements like display stream compression, which they call DSC, to deliver less motion blur in the way that we view VR. And I think a lot of the messaging and the marketing is aimed at people who are like, oh, I can't do VR, it makes me motion sick. So will this make less people nauseous? Perhaps. Now, the Vive Pro is not the headset I would say like, oh, I'm thinking about dipping a toe in the water of VR, because it's not cheap. It is $800 for the headset by itself. If you pre-order the new Vive 2 within a certain time period, they're giving $50 off that price, but $800 for the headset itself. And if you want to get the whole set, which is the headset, the controllers, the cameras, and the base to plug it into your computer, which you need all of that, by the way. You can't play with just the headset. Then you're looking at $1,300 or $1,400 somewhere in there. But the only reason they sell the headset alone is for people who have the original Vive Pro and already have all that stuff and just want the upgraded headset. So it's nice that they offered that. To me, the Vive Pro 2 looks pretty similar to the first Vive Pro. Maybe a little tiny bit sleeker in the design, but that's what it looks like to me. So this is one of those things that it's very hard from a press release to get as excited about as you would say if we did have E3 coming up in June, because they would probably be there demoing it. And when you put it on, then you can say like, okay, I felt like it was weighted appropriately or not. This is how I felt about the feel of the controllers. I noticed a difference graphically or I didn't, but those things are really hard to say until you actually get to experience them. So probably until CES 2022, if I end up going to that will be when I actually get to have an opinion on these things, because otherwise I don't know when I would try it. The Net God says, I have the Valve Index, and while I do not regret the purchase at all, it certainly was not cheap. Yeah, some of the nicer VR headsets are definitely not cheap at all. Rob K says there aren't enough good VR games to spend that kind of money on a headset. Yeah, I mean, when you think about the library of games that are available for consoles, when consoles are half the price and don't require a hefty streaming or a hefty gaming PC to run the VR headset, there's a way better software to hardware ratio when it comes to consoles than there is to VR, right? Now, there are certainly good games for VR. Half-Life Alyx was nominated for tons of awards this year. Super Hot VR, I will stand forever until my death. That game's amazing. Beat Saber is super good. There's lots of great games for working out. Some really fun rhythm games if you're into rhythm games. So there are good games out there, but nowhere near the library you would see for a console, for sure, and certainly for that price point. Matt Foster feels like VR is just a fad, like 3D. It's never going to be as popular as people think it will be. Not for me at those prices. I would say, and maybe I'm wrong in this, but I would say that VR has already been around longer than 3D televisions. I feel like that came and went super quick, like definition of fad. And VR is still trying to figure out its place. Is it enterprise? Is that where its best use is? Is it enthusiasts like gaming? Is that where its biggest interests are? And I think it's still, catering to different markets. So we'll see what happens. If you want a headset that is not as much money, we also had an announcement about the next PSVR. So the PlayStation VR, one that'll work with the PS5. And this is a rumor. So Upload VR reported these rumors, but said that the next gen PSVR will be 4K, have eye tracking, and a vibration motor in the headset for haptic feedback. So, it'll go very nicely with the haptic feedback of the DualSense maybe. But it will not be standalone. I know there were previous rumors that the next gen PSVR wouldn't need to be tethered or wired into anything. Apparently, Upload VR says that's not true. It's going to connect to your PS5 via a USB-C, which the PS5 does have a USB-C or a USB-C port on the front, which anytime you see a port on the front, my mind immediately thinks this is for VR. So that seems like that tracks as far as that rumor goes. And the eye tracking edition, for those of you that aren't like super VR nerds like I am, the eye tracking edition will help with things like what they call foveated rendering, which means that wherever you're looking specifically is sharply in focus, but the peripherals around that are a little less in focus, which is much more similar to how our eyes naturally take in images. And so, of course, the more they can mimic what our eyes naturally see, hopefully the less uncanny valley or nauseousness people will get when they're in VR, which would be really nice. Lack of Words says, I think the next big leap they need are better controllers for VR. Waiting for those gloves. I have seen VR gloves. They were kind of cool. I think they've come a long way with the controllers that actually feel like you're gripping stuff. They only work well for certain games, like Beat Saber, you're gripping a saber, or games where you have to pull a gun out of your holster or something like that. Then it kind of feels like that. But you're right, it's not universal to every VR experience for sure. Mahmood says, good question. Is movie watching decent in VR? I haven't done it. I know that you can, and people talk about like strapping Netflix to your face, like while you're in bed so you don't disturb your partner or whatever, or your roommate. I have not personally tried it. I keep threatening my husband that I'm going to do that on an airplane and just put on my VR headset to watch stuff on an airplane and be like that very odd person on the plane. He's like, please don't do that. But hey, could be fun. Are We Dead Yet says it would be so nice if they fixed the drifting problem with the PSVR. I have not ever owned a PSVR. I've only demoed it. So I have not experienced the drifting problem, but if that's a common problem, yes, hopefully the new one will definitely implement changes that would fix that for sure. How close are we to a holodeck, says Daniel Casaman. I don't know. Owl Captain says foveated. How do you spell that? Very close to what you said, except for an E instead of an I. Very close to how you spelled it in chat, though. Jimmy Sprinkle says, my friend watches Netflix on his VR headset and he likes it. There you go. We have it then. So my question to you guys about these new VR headsets are, what features would you like to see on next gen VR? And if you're someone who is not into VR at all, like some of you have commented today, what do you think would change your mind? Garth McMurray says, I have really bad eyesight and thick glasses. 3D movie glasses and VR headsets don't work well for me and are kind of blurry and make me sick. I get that, Garth. There are some headsets that are a little better about being able to expand the distance, or some of them even come with a like spacer that you can put in to make the headset sit off your face more so that it can allow for glasses. And I've used my headset with and without my glasses, but my glasses are not very thick. So I definitely believe you on that, but hopefully that will get better for people for sure. Michael says, sounds like a headache on the way. I would say more like a kick in the nuts on the way. Oh no. James E says like $100. That's what would make you want to get into VR if it was more around the $100 price point. Yeah, I 100% get that. GDK Mouse says price and compatibility with a PC. So easier entry point to get into VR. I hear that. Daniel says lower price point for me. Tyler says, I enjoyed Beat Saber, but I just can't really share or stream VR. It's one thing to have a controller to yourself, but another thing to have a private screen too. And that's something people have been really struggling with. I mean, for the past 7-8 years, I've been seeing content creators really struggle with how to live stream VR and share it with people. And even though now we have a way for other people to see what's on our screen, and certain headsets make that a little easier than others. Like for example, with an Oculus, you can wirelessly send the image to a Chromecast if you have a Chromecast that's compatible with it. So that's what we do sometimes at our house if we have a couple people over and they've never seen Beat Saber before, so they can at least see what's going on and hear what's going on. But yeah, even still, it's very hard. Like the immersive experience that you experience as the player, it's very hard to convey that to anyone else, to have them share that experience with you. That's true. Rob says if VR headsets weren't as heavy and bulky, I would spend more to buy one. And again, different headsets are a little bit better at balancing those ergonomics than others. But to me still, if I have a VR headset on for about 2 hours, I start to get headachy. You know, I can go for probably hour and a half, but once like especially on streams, if I'm going 2 to 3 hours, I have to be done at that point. Lack of Words says, I don't know. I thought Trisha's knocking over all the stuff in VR was fun to watch. I do. Yeah, I did knock over everything. Let's see. Mahmoud says MMO VR style, like Second Life VR, will be a thing one day. I mean, VR chat is kind of that now. The VR chat community is just wild. I'm like, do we have Backsorn in chat today? Backsorn is a big VR person, and probably has spent way more time in VR chat than I have. Tim says, just waiting for the tech to improve so I don't get sick. And as the tech improves, obviously, at first, the prices even go higher. But hopefully, you know, just like everything else in consumer electronics, eventually the price will come down as newer things come out. But I'm with you. The only time I've ever really gotten motion sickness from VR was when I was pregnant, funny enough. That it's my silly story with Alienware about how I found out I was pregnant at their party because I was doing a VR demo at Alienware's E3 party, and suddenly got very dizzy, which never happens to me in VR. Up until that point, I was really good at handling even pretty poor quality VR headsets. So yeah, that was a thing. But like most people, when you're standing still and you use the smooth motion in VR to move, that is very like, whoa, what's even happening? It throws you off a lot. So I always, if you ever watch me stream, I will teleport in VR, which I know isn't as fun to watch on a stream, but it's the only way I can do it without getting really disoriented. Steven Summers is here. Thank you for the super chat, Steven. Says, finally made it home. Have an awesome weekend, Trisha. I'm not too concerned about the free-to-play thing because game companies will follow trends and then it evens out. I hope you are correct with that. I hope that that's what it is, and this is just, you know, what's going on right now. Scorpion555 says, VR, wow, would be awesome. VR trips to Middle Earth, right? So I'm like, especially for experiential things and for learning in the classroom, like I've seen demos at CES where it's like, this real world thing is happening on the other side of the world right now, and you can feel like you're in the middle of it with VR, and you put it on and it like, you're seeing people run around you, and again, like as a teaching tool or allowing people to experience things that maybe money or time or distance or whatever wouldn't allow them to normally experience. That's really cool. I've seen VR headsets be set up at a seat at a D&D table, and so people could watch the Dungeons and Dragons game as if they were seated at the table and like looking around at everyone, and that's kind of cool. I think they're still kind of figuring it out. Rob K, thank you for the super chat and the flex. I appreciate it. VR field trips, says James E. Exactly what I'm talking about. That could be very, very cool. Steven says, I can't wait for VR or AR D&D worlds, people to build on their own. That would be super cool. That would be very, very cool. All right. Let's move on to our next topic of the day. Next up, I wanted to talk about the Video Game Hall of Fame, which I honestly did not even know was a thing. Apparently, the Video Game Hall of Fame has been around since 2015, and every year they induct a few new titles to the Hall of Fame. And this year's inductees, the big headline was that Animal Crossing made it, and this was Animal Crossing from 2001, not the more recent New Horizons. But the 2021 inductees to the Video Game Hall of Fame were Animal Crossing from 01, Microsoft Flight Simulator, the original from 1982, StarCraft, original, 98, and Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego from 85. And so when I first looked at this list, I was like, what? Because I certainly understand the impact on the gaming industry that a lot of these titles had. I played a crap ton of Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego as a kid, and it was definitely educational, but it was just funny to me. I'm like, when I'm thinking of like most impactful video games of all time, that wouldn't necessarily be on my list, but I don't hate that as a choice. It was just very funny. Some of the other finalists this year that did not make it, this year at least, were Call of Duty, Guitar Hero, Portal, Farmville, FIFA, International Soccer, Mattel Football, Pole Position, and Tron. So they did not make it. They'll have to try again next year, I guess. But other notables on the list from past years have been Oregon Trail, Legend of Zelda, The Sims, and more. Steven says, but when will they induct Leisure Suit Larry? I mean, that was impactful to a lot of people. So funny. Oregon Trail, I definitely am like, yes, that should totally be in there. That was such a like, who was I talking to recently that was like, you could argue that was the first shooter. Going out and shooting bears and bringing the meat back to your cart. And I'm like, I guess you could, huh? But certainly very impactful on the gaming industry. Very funny. Jimmy says, love Carmen Sandiego. And yes, now we're just showing love for Sierra Online. King's Quest was inducted in a previous year to the Video Game Hall of Fame as well. But yeah, this is just so fun. I didn't even know that it existed, but like, way to go, this year's inductees. And so, yeah, I mean, my question to you guys, you're already answering it, but what games do you think should be in the Hall of Fame? And also, who's qualified to decide this? Like, who are the people that should get to vote and judge on the Video Game Hall of Fame, do you think? I don't even know who actually does, but who would you think would be the best suited for it? Al Captain Play says, those four seem pretty deserving over those other finalists, I think. All right. I do still have my You Have Died of Dysentery Oregon Trail shirt somewhere. I've had it for years. It probably has holes in it and stains. Steven Summers says Mortal Kombat, Call of Duty, GTA. I believe one of the GTAs is on there already. Not sure which one. Rob K says all Tomb Raider games should be inducted. I think the original Tomb Raider is on the list from a previous year. Sonic the Hedgehog, says Jeremy Coleman. I also think Sonic the Hedgehog is on from a previous year. Are We Dead Yet says, is Fallout in there already? I don't think Fallout is, but you would have to double check me on that one. Space Ace and Dragon Quest. Garth McMurray says Pong should be in there. Very first game for me and many others. I actually don't think Pong is in there yet. But I agree with you. I think it should, as far as games that made waves in the gaming industry and for people's lives. Civilization, I'd like to see in there. Myst was not in there. Myst is huge. Abra Rusher says, what about E.T. on the Atari? Ooh. Yeah, no, that's probably not going to ever happen. Oh, Lack of Words says Pong is in there, I think. Okay, cool. Matt says Lemmings and Worms. Worms! But yeah, I mean, so many great games, and I just think it's fun to take a small trip down gamer nostalgia lane at some of our favorites. Final Fantasy VII is in there from a previous year. Matthew says +1 for Civ. Kyle says it's only been since 2015, and they induct only a couple of years, so it's understandable there's many they haven't gotten to yet. I am totally with you on that, Kyle. 100%. And now I'm just seeing lots of love in the chat for Worms. Worms is one of the first games Nate and I started playing together when we were dating, actually, funny enough. And he'll probably tell you he kicked my butt, but I totally kicked his butt. So yes, that is the Video Game Hall of Fame. It is a real thing that exists. And congratulations to Animal Crossing, Microsoft Flight Simulator, StarCraft, and Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego on being inducted into it. All right, so the final news topic I wanted to talk about this week is about Disco Elysium. So I've been streaming a little bit of Disco Elysium, the final cut, which is the newly released version with voiceover and some other extra added goodies into it. I love that game. It is a game where you are reading a lot. The voiceover helps, I think, to break a little bit of that up, but it's hard to stream because you're talking the whole time. But it's a lovely game. I saw a meme that to this day makes me laugh so hard, where it was like, Disco Elysium players be like, and it's a guy reading a book, and he's like, man, this gameplay is lit. Because that's really what that game is. But it's written so well, and the story's good, and the choices are hilarious. And anyway, if you haven't played it, highly recommend. But the news around Disco Elysium, the final cut, is that the Australia Classification Review Board banned it. It was banned in Australia, this game. And the new news is that they reversed the ban. Dun 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 dun. So the devs appealed the ban. The ban was initially put in place because of how the game dealt with drugs, and the Australia Classification Board said that it glorified drug use, because as the main protagonist, you are really trying to get drugs a lot of times. If you choose to, though. It's an RPG. You can choose if you want to do that or not. But the final ruling after the ban was as follows. They said, quote, while drug use linked to incentives and rewards cannot be accommodated at the R18 plus rating that they have, this game does provide disincentives related to drug-taking behavior to the point where regular drug use leads to negative consequences for the player's progression in the game. It was specifically the disincentives for drug use that influenced the review board in making their decision. Drug use is not explicitly depicted within the game. And it is not. You don't like see it happening. You just click to take a pill or to have some alcohol or a cigarette or something like that. Steven says, Australia is surprisingly strict in their game ratings. Surprising how curse happy the people are. That's true. All my Australian friends do definitely have much more adult language. But it was so interesting to me that Disco Elysium, the final cut, would be one that's like, this is so awful it's banned, because I've definitely seen less child-appropriate games than Disco Elysium. Let's just say it that way. Like, if Logan came in while I was playing Disco Elysium, I would not panic. There are other games that he comes in and I'm like, oh, please don't watch this. Let's see. Love to Australia, says Steven. Oh, God of Knocker says, can't stay for the stream, just popped in to say hello and hope you're well. Thank you for popping in. I hope you are well, too. Thank you for coming by. Ross Young says, I can't wait to play It Takes Two once I get my PlayStation 5 in the next month or two. I know. I got to convince Nate to play it. Everybody help me in Discord. Help me, help me, help me. Abra says, Australia has got some bonkers gaming laws. There was a game reviewer that ended up moving out of Australia because he couldn't get his hands on half of the new titles. Yeah, I guess I had no idea. I mean, Alana Pierce and Maud Garrett are friends of mine that work in the gaming industry, and they're here, so I don't know if maybe it was too difficult over there, and maybe that was part of what caused them to move here, but I don't think so. But yeah, I didn't know the struggle was so real for games journalism in Australia. Yeah, no, I don't want Logan to watch me play Resident Evil, but good try. Good try, James. So my question to you guys on this, and not just about how strict Australia is, but this is going to be so subjective. For you, do you think banning video games is ever appropriate? And if so, where is the line? Everybody's line is different. So then another follow-up question to that, who should determine what that line is? Like, should it be a committee of people from all over the place? Should it be one organization? I mean, it's such a tough thing. So while you guys are, is that an aliens mug? No, this is the green dragon. Here, I'll showcase it again. Just give it a second to focus after. There you go. Now you can see it. Dun, 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 dun. I love this mug. And it says my name on the bottom. Let's see. It Takes Two is a cute platformer. Yeah, I can't wait to dive into it. But yeah, I mean, for me, if I'm going to talk about like where the line is, I mean, I am very in favor of just put a rating on it and let people be adults. But there are some games that I think could glorify things that are 100% inappropriate. Like, you know, if it's a game that like glorifies mass murders or hate crimes or, you know, anything of that nature, then I'm like, we probably shouldn't be making like a funsy game out of that. Like, just saying. Because if it could lead to real world harm in any potential way, that's scary. However, that's a slippery slope, because as soon as you say that about a game that maybe most people would look at and say, ooh, no, then that same ruling could be used for lots of different things. So yeah, this is such a tricky one, and I don't have a good answer for it. Rob K says, I'm not a parent, but I would never want my child playing games like Postal. Yeah, Postal is a great example. Took it home to Jenny. Comes from the Green Dragon. Thank you for that. I see you there in chat. Garth, you told me that story about the Green Dragon Inn versus the Green Dragon in the books versus the movie. You should have won that trivia round. For sure. Matt says, people should be able to free to play whatever game they choose without the government trying to stop them with exceptions like maybe like rape or sex attacks and murder, etc. Nathan says, we already have censors for TV and movies and games. I think there's always a line for extreme situations, especially on public created games. Yeah, that makes sense too. Are We Dead Yet says, it does concern me to hear so many children in the GTA 5 servers. So many. I have friends that are like, my kid wants to play GTA 5 because they really like cars. And I was like, get them Forza then, if they want to play because they really like cars. GTA is a whole different thing. James says games often have multiple versions depending on the target market. Okay, that's important. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, I agree with a lot of what you guys are saying in chat right now. For sure. And going back to the nostalgia here, Fixian says in chat, I started PC gaming in the early 90s and played all of those games. Postal, Quake, Doom, Duke Nukem 3D. I think I turned out all right. I mean, I played Doom as a kid too, and I also think I turned out all right. I mean, we're probably not the best judge of ourselves, but for the most part, I think okay. But I'm not talking about games that are rated M for mature. I'm talking about games where you as the protagonist are inflicting crime or pain in a way that glorifies that type of pain infliction. That's something to me that I'm like, yeah, maybe we shouldn't do that. Like the really extreme cases, not like Doom or something where, yes, it's very graphic, it's very violent, but like you're shooting demons or aliens or, you know. Fighting evil is noble. Exactly. Rob K says, but then you have to bring up this argument, great argument, says freedom of choice shouldn't include material harmful or detrimental to people. I'm not against having a head committee determining something to be banned. And maybe if you could get like a very diverse committee to weigh in on stuff, maybe that would be a good way to do it. I don't know. I mean, I certainly side with marketplaces when a privately owned marketplace like Steam or Epic Games or something says, yeah, we don't want to sell that on our platform, because they're a company. They have the right to determine, who they work with and who they don't. Now, are there still other places to get those games? Sure. But yeah, and then I guess if you're going to say if it's a ban, then is that a ban on selling it? Because they're not going to come after people who get their hands on like a bootleg or something. I don't know. There's so many complex questions involved in that. But it is good news that the Australia Review Board said Disco Elysium Final Cut is A-okay, because that's a great game and I think more people should get to experience it for sure. So that about wraps us up for this week's Dragonrider Happy Hour. Thank you all so much for joining and chatting games and stuff with me. Normally this is the last thing that I do on Fridays, so I just get to like shut my laptop and be done and chill with the family. That is not the case today. I am so busy this work week. In fact, I didn't post on Instagram all week. I've barely tweeted. I haven't really been on as many platforms as much because I've been very lucky to be busy with hosting work. Yay, thank you. I'm very, very excited for those opportunities. But I already had 2 Amazon live streams today, and I have another one coming up after this. So I have one in an hour and 20 minutes to my Amazon Live channel. And then tomorrow I have 2 more to my Amazon Live channel, one in the morning and one in the evening. So if any of you do follow me on Amazon Live and are planning on tuning in for some of those, I will let you know that this afternoon's and both of tomorrow's will be mostly the same. They're going to cover a lot of the same products. So while I appreciate everyone stopping in the chat and saying what's up, especially because I'm going to be on like Amazon Live front page, so I might have a lot of randos in chat trying to cause problems. So I always appreciate seeing the familiar names in chat and getting your lovely comments and questions about the products. I say that they're going to be similar because I don't want by any means anyone to feel like they have to tune in to all 3. If you want to come hang out for all 3, you are welcome to do so, and I'm happy to see you there. But yeah, it's mostly going to be the same thing. So don't worry if you can't make one of them or 2 of them. It's going to be a lot of the same with tiny differences. But yeah, so I'm going to have a busy work week. So I'll wrap everything up here, tear down this studio, take it all back upstairs after this. But I hope for you, I hope that your work week is winding down and you can relax a little bit. I'm sure you can tell in my brain, I'm still very go, go, go mode. But I have my Amazon stream this afternoon, 2 Amazon streams tomorrow, and then I will be live on Twitch Sunday morning for the Sunday morning chill stream as per usual. But Twitch is my downtime. That doesn't feel like work. So if you're going to be on the interwebs at any of those points and want to come say hi, I will put the links in Discord if you want to follow on any of those places, because I know it's so hard to like keep track of all the different platforms and whatnot that content creators work on nowadays. Discord is my home hub. That's where it's most easy for me to say like, hey, happy hour is going to be 5 minutes late today, or anything like that. So a huge thank you, as always, to everyone who's hung out for today's happy hour. You've been absolutely amazing, and I appreciate you so much. Thank you all for weighing in on the conversation, especially in times where it's hard for us to go out and see people face to face in person and nerd out about this stuff in person. It's really nice to have this online community to chat with about it. So yeah, thank you all so much for being here today. And my internet's dying anyway, so it's perfect for me to sign off right now. Cheers. Have a great weekend. Bye, everyone.